Hello and welcome to our Street Soccer United podcast with me, Keith Mabbott, founder and CEO of the Street Soccer Foundation. And on today's show, we've got the brilliant Ben Parry, a PhD student at the University of Birmingham. Really interesting guy. This is going to be a fantastic discussion. I know it is, Ben. So kicking things off with you, firstly, for the benefit of our listeners and partners, supporters, but most importantly, our young people that we help through the foundation, can you say a little bit about where you're at currently in your life and what you're up to in a professional capacity?
Hi Keith. First of all, thanks for having me on. As I said to you, I've always quite fancied doing a podcast. So to be on this one with yourself in street soccer is a privilege because your organisation really captures two of my passions, both in the form of football and community-based work, which promotes social change and social justice. Thanks. So currently I'm a PhD candidate and research associate at the University of Birmingham, and I specialise in community-based sports psychology and youth development. And in particular, I work with a great team on the My Strengths Training for Life programme, which I might refer to as MSD for Life for short, otherwise it's a bit of a mouthful. But the MSD for Life programme is a collaborative project with the Youth Housing Service St Basil's. And I guess really the main thing about the programme is it's grounded in sports psychology. So we have that strengths-based approach to working with people, but we're transgressing the sports setting to apply sports psychology to young people experiencing homelessness. And we do this through 10 life skills workshops where we emphasise promoting self-awareness of strengths and capabilities, also life skill development and psychological qualities such as resilience, self-worth and well-being, which we know are important qualities not just to sports people, but really to anyone and everyone in everyday life. So for the second part of our programme, we then go to an outdoor pursuit centre with young people. And this experience is about promoting competency and confidence to transfer life skills. Because we know that if we transfer life skills between different settings and different challenges, it helps build our self-belief and actually our ability to adaptively self-manage. And what I mean by that is managing our thoughts, behaviours and emotions in a positive and helpful way. So more recently, we spent time on developing 3 toolkits and online resources that stem from our research evaluating the MSD for Life programme and also informed more broadly by the youth homeless sector. I won't go into too much detail about these, but a bit of a shameless plug for our website. You can head over to www.sprintproject.org, where these resources are free to download. Our toolkits are free to download. You can learn a little bit more about the MSD for Life programme and even get in touch with the team if you wanted to chat a bit more.
What you're doing sounds just so interesting and valuable. The transference of sports psychology and applied learnings and values within such to then help others in a completely different context. As you say, one example being young people that are currently experiencing homelessness. Obviously, that's really sort of resonates with what we do at the foundation. So, I mean, would you say you're someone who's naturally academic? Have you always wanted to complete a PhD?
No, I wouldn't say I'm naturally academic. I've always had to and still have to graft to get work done and get my head around concepts and ideas. But I think a big turning point for me was actually in sixth form, where I got set on the idea that I really wanted to go to university and pursue a degree in sport science. And once I had this vision, I really got myself motivated and focused. And I guess it was that impetus I needed to get my head down and get some good results to make this vision a reality. However, then during university, I found myself a bit amotivated with academia, if you like, because, and as silly as this might sound, because science was in the title of a sports science course, I wasn't actually prepared for how science-based the work would be, and it really didn't engage or excite me. However, the sports psychology modules did, so I chose to focus on this for my dissertation, where I kind of just threw myself into it, and I actually met my PhD supervisor now, Jennifer Cumming. So when I realised sports psychology really piqued my interest, I also realised I probably needed more than just a sports science degree to pursue this as a career. So I actually then got in touch with Jen to ask for a reference for a different master's course. And it just so happened at this time there was an opportunity to join up with the MSD for Life project as a master's student, which was just really fortunate timing for me. And then because I enjoyed the work so much, I wanted to go further with it. I ended up progressing into a PhD. So I guess I would say my journey in academia hasn't always been fueled by a natural ability, but more finding energy and motivation when I was excited at the prospect of what I was studying or what I was learning about.
So from what you're saying, I've certainly picked up on the obvious passion that you've got for sport and sports psychology. Do you think there were any significant moments in your childhood or perhaps even early adulthood that led you down this academic path?
I think without necessarily knowing it at the time, sport played a big part in childhood for me. I think sporting experiences, both good and difficult, taught me some valuable life lessons. So for instance, I did a lot of running when I was younger. And the winter training for running is brutal. You do tough sessions in tough conditions, but you're building towards a bigger picture, an aspiration, and you're setting goals along the way. So when I ran well in summer, if I ran a good time or I won a race, I learned to attribute this to the training I'd done throughout winter. That had given me the strong foundations both mentally and physically to achieve my goals and enjoy those moments of success. And I guess I translated this to working hard in school. I would oftentimes, and actually still do now, compare working on a piece of work to training really hard and thinking about how much energy I put into my physical training and the mindset I needed to do that. So how can I apply this to essentially what is mental training, is the way I saw it. And I think that's really helped me be resilient in all walks of life, but especially in academic work, where, as I said earlier, I didn't feel I had the natural ability that sometimes I felt my peers had. But actually in early adulthood, or maybe even more late adolescence, it was my peers and my friendship group that had a really positive impact on me. They were all quite smart, quite driven, and I think seeing these guys achieve and just generally being around people that were willing to work and be focused rubbed off on me, as I felt I kind of wanted to fit in, I guess, in a way. But fortunately, I was fitting in with quite clever guys, so I guess that kind of peer pressure, if you like, which can, as we know, have a lot of negative impacts, for me was actually quite healthy. So I think I was really fortunate to have a good group of friends around me growing up.
Again, it's so interesting to hear what you're saying here, Ben, the mental training aspect and that building of resilience and seeing others around you achieve that kind of driving force of inspiration for you basically to want to be the best version of yourself. You know, it's the kind of environment that we absolutely look to create within our own street soccer academy programs throughout the foundation for the young people that we support. So you're now very close to completing your PhD, aren't you? You know, how do you start to forge a new path in life, you know, at this point in time? You know, how do you think about your next challenge?
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a scary prospect in some ways, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that as well. But I think one thing that has really helped me make difficult decisions about what next is taking some time to self-reflect and doing this critically and thoroughly. So not in a sense of being self-critical, but trying to ask myself difficult questions and reflect honestly about what it is that motivates me, what excites me, and also what it is that will challenge me. And I mean, personally, I geek out on this a little bit. I get a pen and paper, I get some different colours, and I really go to town mapping out my ideas, because I find this is helpful for getting ideas out of my head. And if I can see it on a bit of paper in front of me, it actually helps me break it down and see it from a different angle, literally seeing it in front of you. So for instance, with me, I know that I'm quite extroverted. And by that, I mean I get energised from working with people. This motivates me and I get a great deal of satisfaction from it. So when I'm thinking about positions to apply for, I know that I need to be in a role where I can fulfil this passion for working with people. And in particular, if I can channel this energy towards having a social impact, then that's going to be the sort of job that I want to get up and do every morning.
You talked a bit there about sort of personality, you know, you being an extrovert, for example, but having that passion to work with and help other people. How important, just out of interest here, I mean, how important do you think personality traits are when considering your future and future career?
Yeah, I do. I think learning more about your preferences and your kind of authentic self, if you like, is a massively important process for self-development and self-awareness. And if you think about how much of our lives we spend at work, I think it's good for our health and well-being to ensure we're working in an environment that nurtures our strengths and helps us flourish. There's actually a website that I really like, and we've used it a little bit in the MST for Life program as well, and that's 16personalities.com. which I'd really recommend people check out. And the idea is you fill out a quiz, and this is based on 4 different dimensions of personality, which are grounded in research by Myers-Briggs. So it's evidence-based, and whilst it's not an exact measurement, we always have to take these things with a pinch of salt, it can tell you a little bit more about your character strengths, what kind of other people you might work well with, and there's actually a section on there about career paths and workplace habits too. So from this you can then start to think about the avenues you want to explore to utilise your strengths, or maybe actually build on areas for improvement. Is there a course that you could do to upskill yourself, if you like? And actually what I found quite helpful about it as well is you can have a look at the other personality profiles. So you can take this a step further and maybe start to think about, what sort of personalities do you think you would work well with, and maybe ones you might clash with, and you can start to understand different perspectives, how people might work differently to you. So you're also now preparing yourself to go into a workplace not only to get the best out of yourself, but maybe even in a leadership role and get the best out of other people. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth taking some time to know yourself a little bit better, and then build your future around nurturing and utilising your strengths.
Ben, I love that reference you've made. Listen, shameless promotion is fine with me. Let me tell you that. But no, on a serious, I'm definitely going to be checking that out myself. This 16personalities.com. Like you say, to help to understand your own personalities, but interestingly as well, perhaps those that are around you, get to know yourself better. It's certainly an effective way to support your own self-development and self-awareness. We'll look to put a link on that in the socials. But if there was one takeaway message from sports psychology that you feel could benefit everyone listening in on this, what do you think it would be and why?
I think for me, sports psychology is all about being intentional with your time. By that, I mean athletes are doing whatever they can to find that extra 1%. They're not leaving it to chance. They're using their energy and they're using their time to work on themselves. So when it comes to that big performance, that big moment, they're ready to step up and get the best possible outcome. So I guess applying that to everyday life, it's about asking yourself, what is my big performance? It might be a job interview, it might be a presentation, it might be an exam, anything where you need to perform at your best under pressure to achieve a desired outcome. And once you understand that, then thinking about, how well prepared am I for that performance? Or maybe to what extent am I leaving it to chance that I'll get that desired outcome? Because that's exactly it in sports psychology. As I said at the start, it's all about not leaving things to chance. When, for example, in the Premier League, there's so much riding on every opportunity that comes up in a game. Managers, the team, the club, and the players themselves don't want to be leaving it to chance. And pressure is really just a subjective concept when we think about it. So when you're going into a job interview or you're going into an exam, you're still feeling an amazing amount of pressure. Okay, you may not have 50 or 1,000 fans in a stadium, but that pressure for you in that moment is real, and that's your big performance. So I guess if you're not feeling totally prepared for that moment, and you have to be kind of honest with yourself about that, it's then about saying, okay, how can I be more intentional about my time leading up to this performance? That's going to help me feel more prepared. For instance, an athlete's preparation doesn't start on their way to the match. It starts in the week leading up to it, maybe even longer. They're training, they're imaging themselves being successful, they're planning for all possible scenarios, they're hyping themselves up, they're probably, and most definitely, also working on their weaknesses too. And we can also do all these things, just in different contexts. But it's about being intentional with your time, making time to practice, making time to prepare, and having that faith in a process that actually when you get to that big performance setting, it's all going to be worth it. You're going to feel prepared, and hopefully you're going to get the outcome that you desire.
Fantastic answer, Ben. Get and find that extra 1% and work on yourself to get the best possible outcome. And like you said, don't leave things to chance. I mean, certainly, some of the players and former players that I've spoken with, and, it's absolutely that. There's so much pressure in the game, isn't there, in football? You've really got to be prepared and be at your best constantly. But what you said, basically I'm just echoing what you said. Be more intentional with what you're doing and how you're doing it. And the reference you made there to kind of visualization essentially is what you're talking about there, in my view. It's so important and valuable, and it's absolutely something that works. It's again, a module within what we do at the academy. So it's like you've been on our course, Ben. But no, it's brilliant what you're doing, and obviously seeing yourself doing well, achieving a goal, or even in a football context, scoring that decisive winning goal. It works, and it does work wonders. I can't believe we've got to the end, but finally, to wrap today's podcast interview, it's been so insightful and interesting. Ben, I knew it was going to be like this. Really appreciate you being a part of the podcast today. But the final question we always ask is, what's the best advice you've ever been given, and by who?
Oof, biggest bit of advice. That's a tough one. I think I'm going to answer this question slightly differently and go with the biggest thing I've learned from watching my colleagues and facilitators of the MST for Life program working with young people and delivering the program, and that would be the value of listening and really hearing somebody, because I sometimes think we confuse communication with trying to get our point across without necessarily hearing what the other person's saying to us. And when we do that, we kind of shut down that dialogue, and we don't really communicate in a way that's beneficial for the person we're talking to, but also for ourselves. We shut down that opportunity to learn. So I think being comfortable in putting your ego to one side, if you like, and actually just really sitting and learning from somebody, really trying to understand their perspective, and having that curious mind to, at least in that moment when you're talking to somebody, to, as close as you can, be in their shoes, because we can never really truly do that. But I guess in a role as a sports psychologist, you want to get as close as possible to understanding that person's perspective. And if you're good at your job, you can then take that on board and help that person grow. And they can also probably help you learn a thing or two, as I've definitely learned throughout my research that I've learned a lot from other people, as opposed to necessarily passing on any wisdom. I'm not sure if I've done a great deal of that. So yeah, that would be not direct advice, but certainly implicitly what I've picked up from people and in more informal conversations is really taking a step back in conversations and trying to listen to somebody and hear their perspective is quite an empowering thing, both for the person you're speaking to and for yourself.
Absolutely brilliant, Ben. Thank you very much indeed. The value of listening and really hearing someone. You are absolutely right. There is a distinct difference between listening and hearing. They are not the same thing at all. Hearing can really drive education and learning. So having that curious mind, like you're saying, to help both yourself and others, just superb. Ben, thank you. There you go, everyone. You've listened here to Ben Parry, a PhD student from the University of Birmingham, clearly going places, a wonderful mind, and a great supporter of the Street Soccer Foundation. Be sure to tune in again next week for our next podcast interview.